Are you suffering from a tight psoas muscle at the front of your hip that's causing you to feel like you've got tight hips or even causing you back pain? If you are, then this video is going to show you one simple trick that you can use in 60 seconds to relieve the problem. Hi everybody, my name is Will Harlow and I'm the Over-Fifties Specialist Physio here at HT Physio in Farnham. And today I'm going to be showing you how to fix a tight psoas muscle in 60 seconds. Now, before we dive into the content of the video, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel using the link in the bottom right of the video, because then you'll be the first to hear about our new videos when they come out. Now that that's been said, let's talk about the psoas muscle, why it gets tight, where it is, and what we can do to fix it. So I'm going to use my spinal model to help me explain where the psoas muscle is. So this is the front of your spine. You've got your pelvis here, you've got this bone at the bottom is your sacrum, and then you've got your lumbar vertebra here. And the psoas muscle is actually a hip muscle, but it's very closely linked to the spine as well. So if we're looking at the psoas on a human, the psoas is very deep and it's about here, okay? So it's down deep inside the hip at the front of the hip, and it lives right down deep inside the body. So if we're looking at where the psoas is on the skeleton, the psoas actually attaches to your lumbar vertebra. So it attaches to some of the lumbar vertebra at the top of the lumbar spine. So our lumbar spine is L5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the psoas attaches to the top parts of the lumbar spine. So that's where it starts. So it's right up at the back of the body, attaching to the spine. And then it runs down the front of the body, through the hip, and attaches to the thigh bone, which you can't see on this model, but the thigh bone would be about here on the model if it was there. So it starts here and it runs down the inside of the hip and attaches to the front of the thigh bone. Okay? So it goes from the spine to the leg. Now, when it contracts, so when the muscle gets short, it brings the thigh bone up. Okay, so it is basically responsible for the movement of bringing your knee up towards you. So just to demonstrate what a psoas movement would be, if you start standing and you lift your knee like this, that would be the psoas contracting to bring your leg up. Now, the psoas is an interesting muscle because it has quite a strong effect, or it has quite a prominent effect on people's spines, just because that's where it starts off. And if it becomes tight, what it can do is it can cause tightness at the front of the leg, but it can also cause back pain. And that's because when it's tight, when it's shortened, the attachments are being pulled on. And one of those attachments is on the lumbar spine. So if you think about having a tight psoas muscle, which is attached to the spine, when you're upright and when you're walking, every time you take a step, it's pulling on the front of the spine, which can make what we call a lordosis worse, which is where the pelvis tilts forward, and it can make your back stiff, sore, and achy. Now, to compound the problem, a lot of people have tight psoas muscles. And the reason we have tight psoas muscles is because we do a lot of sitting. Now, if you think about the way you're sat when you're sat in a chair, your knees are brought up towards you so your bottom can rest on the seat. Now, the problem is, even though this isn't a psoas action because we're sat here passively, what it's doing is it's put the psoas into a short position. Now, if we're spending 8 hours every single day in this short psoas position, eventually when we stand up, it's going to be tighter than it was before we did all that sitting. Now, if you're working a desk job, you're spending 40 hours a week at your desk, plus when you're going home, you're watching TV on the sofa, and then on your weekends, maybe you're in the car or maybe you're sat doing other things. All of this sitting time contributes to tightness in the psoas. So psoas tightness is one of the leading causes of back pain, of mechanical back pain, I should say. But the good thing is it's easily fixed. So I'm going to give you one easy exercise you can use to relieve tightness in the psoas, to reduce that pressure on your lower back and reduce pain as a result. Let's have a look at what that exercise is now so you can try it at home. So here I'm going to show you one really simple trick you can use to relieve tightness in the psoas muscle. And just to clarify, the psoas is a muscle that lives at the front of the thigh, but it's deep down. So to press on it, we can't really touch it. Some therapists get their fingers and thumbs deep in here, which is one of the places you technically can reach it, but it's very uncomfortable to do so, and it's almost impossible to do this to yourself. So I wouldn't recommend people do that. What I'm instead going to give you is a really effective stretch that you can do anytime, any place to relieve symptoms of a tight psoas. Now, there's one exercise that I do not recommend people do for a tight psoas that you will see online. And the one that I see people talking about online is they put their foot down and they bring their leg really far forward like that. And this does stretch the psoas muscle, but it also puts more strain on the lower back. And it's actually not an exercise that is in reach for everyone, because if you have hip arthritis or a stiff hip, you might not actually be able to get your leg out behind you. So we don't typically recommend this to people. I see loads of people in gyms doing this, and it's okay, but there's a better alternative, and it's more accessible for most people that I'm going to show you right now. So this is what I recommend you do instead. So we want to have the same position as I just showed you to start off with. So what we're having here is you've got something to hold on to. You're kneeling down, so your knee is on the floor, and this is the leg that's going to be stretched. And you've got a 90-degree angle here, and you've got a 90-degree angle here. Okay, so this should be reasonably comfortable for most people. If you're not happy having your knee on the ground, I would put a towel underneath it to see if cushioning it helps you to kneel without pain. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get this muscle at the front of the thigh to stretch. And the way we do this is by activating a different muscle, one that is the exact opposite to the psoas. And the one that is the exact opposite to the psoas is this muscle back here, okay, the gluteus, right? So what we're going to do is to activate it, we're going to pretend that you've got a tail, okay, you've got a tail out behind you, and you're trying to tuck your tail between your legs. Now, doing this, we don't want the back to go forward. We don't want the leg to lean forward like this. We're just staying completely still, and we're just tucking that tail between the legs. And you should be able to feel that this switches on. And if you're doing this correctly, you'll almost instantly get quite an intense stretch at the front of your hip. And that's if you've got a tight psoas muscle. Now, I can feel the stretch straight away, so it means I probably am spending too long sitting at the moment, like most people, but it's a nice relieving stretch. It can feel quite vague. Because the psoas is so deep, the body often doesn't really know what to do with this stretch, so it can give you some discomfort all around the front of the hip. But the stretching sensation is a good one, and if you hold the contraction, so you hold this bottom position, you should feel that stretch continue. Now, another way to picture how to do this movement, if you're struggling, is to imagine you've got a pencil between your bottom cheeks and you're just trying to squeeze the pencil. Okay, so we're rotating our hips underneath us like this, okay, tucking the tail between the knees and squeezing the pencil between the bottom. Now, if you notice my head and my shoulders, they're staying exactly the same, they're staying still. And what I usually recommend is once people have got this posture with the stretch, they hold it for 30 seconds. Now, once you've done 30 seconds, all you do is you swap. So you put your other knee down, you bring this one up, you sit up nice and tall, and again, you just tuck underneath you. So you tuck the tail between the knees, or between the legs, and you squeeze the pencil between the bottom. Now, the beauty about this exercise is it's what we call an active stretch. So when I showed you the one to avoid earlier, we call this a passive stretch because you're just moving into it, but we call this one an active stretch because you're squeezing your buttocks to switch them on, and that means not only are you stretching the psoas muscle, but you're actually strengthening the buttock muscles as well. So you get a double benefit with this one. That's why it's such a better exercise than the first one we looked at. Now, the good thing about that is when you're walking around, when you're moving, when you're doing all your normal stuff, that means the buttock muscles, the glutes, are now more likely to work. The psoas muscle is less likely to be switched on all the time, and that leads to a less tight psoas over time as we do it more and more. So just to show you again, what you would do from the front is you have your leg to be stretched on the ground, and you just tuck that tail between your knees until you get a stretch. And again, we hold for 30 seconds. I recommend to most people that they do 30 seconds on each side about 3 or 4 times a day. And in about 2 to 4 weeks, you're going to notice a big change in the flexibility of the psoas muscle and hopefully less back pain as a result. So that's the one simple exercise I would use to fix psoas tightness in most people. As I said earlier in the video, make sure you get an assessment from your healthcare professional before you just start doing it. But for most people, this is a lovely, simple exercise to use to stretch the psoas. And it also works the glutes at the back, so it means you get a double benefit. Anyway, that's all I had for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If it's been useful, please leave me a comment below to let me know. And if you like my kind of content and you want more from me, please feel free to pick up a copy of my book. It's called Thriving Beyond 50, and you can find it on Amazon using the link below this video. It's perfect for over 50s who want to remain independent, active, and mobile in their 50s and beyond. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to speaking to you on the next video.